Everyone calls General Hospital a classic, but let's be honest, it's a masterclass in narrative malpractice. Here's what no one wants to admit about daytime TV's gold standard. There are soap operas that thrive on melodrama, and then there is General Hospital, a show that long ago transcended melodrama and now resembles a carnival of emotional pyrotechnics and narrative amnesia. If there is one thing the citizens of Port Charles can agree on, it's that consistency is for amateurs. Take the saga of the forged will, because what's more reliable than another inheritance scandal? Poor Ronnie, the ever-tragic heart tethered to other people's bad decisions, will soon learn that Monica never left her the mansion. Not because Monica lacked affection, but because she is, inconveniently, dead, and because a certain Martin has forged documents like a child caught with glue and glitter. The revelation promises heartbreak, not for the lost property, but for the loss of imagined affection. Ronnie's faith in familial love will crumble faster than any Quartermaine marriage, and one can already hear the violins swelling for her breakdown scene. Of course, gallant Michael will step in with the kind of solemn generosity only a soap hero can muster, insisting that he and Jason will take care of her for life. Nothing screams romance like a promise that sounds equal parts charity and paternalism. Somewhere in the background, Erica Slezak's fleeting presence hovers like a ghost of better writing decisions. Her performance briefly lent GH a dignity it has since misplaced, and her departure feels like the show packing up its last ounce of gravitas and mailing it to ABC's archives. Meanwhile, the Spinelli problem persists. One can't help but appreciate his linguistic gymnastics, sentences so ornate they require a UN interpreter. Even Brit, ever the queen of weary sarcasm, asked him to give English a whirl. It's a rare instance when the audience feels entirely aligned with the characters. His charm, though exhausting, remains one of the last vestiges of old-school eccentricity that hasn't yet been flattened by the writer's perpetual quest to modernize everything into dust. And speaking of disasters in the making, Detective Chase, that earnest, square-jawed monument to misplaced loyalty, officially forfeited any credibility when he refused to believe Willow could stalk anyone. The man is living proof that handsome stupidity can, in fact, be terminal. Viewers watch him destroy his life in slow motion for a woman who has already run a masterclass in infidelity. If Port Charles ever opened a school for tragic decision-making, Chase would graduate with honors. Then there's the never-ending guessing game about who's haunting whom, forging what, and reminding Brit to take her medicine. Perhaps Brad Cooper, the prodigal schemer of laboratory lore, is secretly lurking in the shadows again. Why not? The dead rise, the living vanish, and continuity is treated like an optional elective. Every so often, the conversation turns nostalgic. Did one prefer Luke with Laura or Luke with Tracy? It's a question akin to asking whether one prefers arsenic or cyanide. The moral rot of the former pairing lingers like an unpleasant aftertaste. The latter, at least, came with comic relief. Luke and Laura's romance, the show's supposed crown jewel, has aged about as gracefully as a mullet. Even the most forgiving fans can't quite scrub the stain of that beginning from their collective memory. Still, one must credit the performers. Erica Slezak and Jane Elliott's recent scenes were a brief reminder that acting, real acting, still occasionally sneaks into the Port Charles circus. For a fleeting moment, one could almost believe in the psychological complexity of a character like Ronnie, whose fractured identity seemed to channel every ghost of Vikey's past personas. That's the beauty and tragedy of GH. Even when the writing collapses, a few actors hold the ruins upright through sheer willpower. Yet the true sport of watching General Hospital isn't the storylines. It's deciphering whether the writers are incompetent or deliberately trolling their audience. When Nathan casually mentioned never meeting Rocco, the collective gasp wasn't from shock. It was from disbelief that anyone still expects continuity. Viewers scrambled to cross-check 7 years of history, but the answer, as always, was simple. The writers forgot. They are, after all, professionals at selective memory. The debate unfolded like a courtroom drama. Some claimed Nathan meant he hadn't met Rocco as a teenager. Others believed it was a Freudian slip hinting at a secret identity. Perhaps he's been mind-controlled, or perhaps the writers are just recycling Lucky Spencer's tragic return gone wrong playbook. The audience, having been trained by decades of soap logic, leaned toward the latter. Even Liesel's reappearance sparked debate when Nathan called her Mutter, a linguistic relic more associated with Peter. But perhaps that's too much credit. The show's German lesson begins and ends at Danke. The inconsistencies pile up faster than the hospital bills. Charlotte, Rocco, Claudette, characters orbiting a black hole of forgotten paternity tests and rewrites. Each new revelation feels like déjà vu performed by understudies. Amid this chaos, a rare bright spot emerges in young Danny, played by Asher Antonisen, who somehow embodies both his fictional parents, Sam and Jason, with startling precision. Brave, loyal, intense. He's a Jason clone with a moral compass. It's refreshing, even moving, to see a teenager on this show who doesn't yet require therapy or legal counsel. The young actor injects authenticity into a world where sincerity is an endangered species. Still, even Danny's emotional gravity can't save the writers from their obsession with dropping subplots like hot coals. His brief connection with Carly, a potentially tender surrogate mother dynamic, was promptly abandoned. Heaven forbid a storyline develop organically when it can instead be replaced by Carly's latest espionage fantasy. The show's true mission statement seems to be, if it works, end it immediately. Which brings us, inevitably, to Carly herself, Port Charles' perennial gravitational center. Whether she's scheming, grieving, or redecorating her moral high ground, everything eventually revolves around her. Once the WSB storyline showed potential, it was immediately rewritten into the Carly Corinthos revenge tour. What could have been a morally complex espionage arc dissolved into another Carly vs. Men Who Underestimate Carly saga. Originally, the narrative poised Jason between love and loyalty, secrecy and survival. Then came Carly, armed with her endless supply of righteous indignation, and the plot crumbled beneath her stilettos. A potentially thrilling conspiracy became an excuse for yet another exercise in self-martyrdom. One might even admire her tenacity if it weren't so predictable. The Valentine Alliance offered a spark, a deliciously amoral pairing that could have injected sophistication into the soap's bloodstream. But the show's fixation on centering Carly turned it into yet another morality play. Instead of espionage, we got ego management. Instead of a shadowy web of lies, we got Carly plotting in plain sight, as if subtlety were beneath her. Still, one can't deny the potential. When Valentine and Carly share a screen, the air crackles with the energy of two apex predators forced to share a cage. For a brief moment, General Hospital remembers it used to be about power, not pity. Unfortunately, the rest of the WSB storyline now feels like a jigsaw puzzle missing half its pieces. Joss, Emma, Britt, Nathan, each wandering through the debris of once promising arcs. A secret agent plotline that could have revitalized the franchise instead feels like a discarded Bond parody. Even the moral tension, Jason protecting Jocelyn's secret, was neutered the instant Carly learned the truth. The writer's idea of raising the stakes is simply having Carly enter the scene. Some viewers cling to optimism. Perhaps Valentine knows more than he lets on. Perhaps Cyrus isn't dead. Perhaps Colette revived him in a fit of narrative generosity. The speculation keeps fans engaged, though not necessarily hopeful. For a show that once thrived on operatic stakes, GH now thrives on the collective endurance of its audience. Meanwhile, the question of who deserves to be in the WSB, Joss or Emma, has become an ideological war. Emma, with her family lineage of spies, would seem the obvious choice. She has the DNA for deception, if not the appetite. Joss, by contrast, is the show's perennial trust fund dilettante, whose rebellious streak feels more like a vacation hobby than a calling. The debate is less about narrative logic than about audience fatigue. One side insists Emma's intelligence and heritage make her the natural heir to Anna's espionage throne. The other claims her independence disqualifies her. The truth, of course, is simpler. The writers never commit long enough to make either convincing. General Hospital doesn't develop characters anymore. It rotates them like decor in a department store window. Mid-chaos, half-coherent, and wholly fascinating. The show remains a paradox, a museum of broken plotlines sustained by actors who refuse to let it die. Beneath the confusion, there lingers a strange kind of beauty, an unintentional masterpiece of narrative entropy, where every contradiction, every forgotten storyline, becomes part of its charm. In Port Charles, memory is negotiable, morality is flexible, and continuity is a quaint relic. Yet for all its absurdities, one cannot look away. Like a grand, glittering train wreck in slow motion, General Hospital remains what it has always been, utterly, magnificently impossible to stop watching. There comes a point in every soap's decline when one must ask, is this character development or narrative taxidermy? General Hospital has reached that point, embalming its storylines in repetition while dressing them up as bold new directions. Enter Michael Corinthos, saintly heir to dysfunction, whose moral superiority is matched only by his selective amnesia. His current pairing with Jacinda has been heralded, derided, and dissected to exhaustion. Some hail them as the next power couple. Others see a Pretty Woman reboot no one asked for. Both are correct, and neither outcome is flattering. Michael, once the boy who survived more trauma than most countries, now struts through Port Charles like the moral accountant of everyone else's sins. He's the patron saint of double standards, quick to judge, slower to recall his own family's rap sheet. His latest romantic adventure involves Jacinda, a reformed escort whose only true scandal is daring to have a past. The show, desperate for relevance, has latched onto her escort storyline like a cat clutching its last piece of string. The narrative insists Jacinda is a classy escort, which is soap code for prostitute with immaculate lighting. She's confident, sharp, and blessed with the one thing Michael's other partners lacked, the ability to mock his sanctimony to his face. Naturally, this makes her dangerous. Her scenes with Drew, all chilly defiance and veiled disgust, were the first sign that GH might stumble onto something interesting. A woman who doesn't crumble under the weight of male moral lectures is a rare species in Port Charles. Yet, because this is GH, no promising relationship survives unscathed. The writers appear intent on transforming Jacinda's agency into yet another morality trial for Michael. Her supposed redemption arc is less about her evolution, and more about how graciously Michael can forgive her. It's a tedious dynamic, the rich man who sees the real woman beneath her past, as if his benevolence were a personality trait. The irony, of course, is that Michael's mother has spent decades weaponizing her sexuality, but heaven forbid anyone else follow suit. Some viewers see in Jacinda the reincarnation of a young Bobby Spencer, another woman who started in scandal and ended in respectability. The resemblance isn't accidental. The show loves recycling its archetypes, virgin, victim, vixen, because it long ago forgot how to invent new ones. Still, there's a flicker of intrigue in Jacinda's quiet intelligence. She doesn't whimper. She negotiates. She's not begging for acceptance. She's testing whether Michael deserves her time. That alone puts her several IQ points above half the cast. The question, however, remains, is she too good for this storyline? The answer is resoundingly yes. Her connection to Drew, the town's latest narcissist-in-chief, complicates her redemption. A woman with her history dating a man knee-deep in scandal? It's less Pretty Woman and more how to tank a custody case. The writers are either oblivious or gleefully cynical, possibly both. The entire plot feels like an experiment in whether the audience will forgive Michael anything as long as he smiles through his self-righteousness. Meanwhile, the show continues its grand tradition of continuity crimes. Jacinda's presence somehow ties back to Nina and Portia, who allegedly hired her. Drew suspects it, but in typical fashion, can't prove a thing. The public, we're told, believes he spent a night of ketamine-fueled debauchery with her, a phrase so gloriously absurd, it deserves an Emmy for accidental comedy. Naturally, Jacinda calls him out for his hypocrisy, blaming him for the chaos while managing to remain more dignified than anyone in a 10-mile radius. Still, Even her poised contempt can't disguise the absurdity of the situation. A custody battle looms, and Michael's dalliance with a former escort is somehow being treated as a political scandal. One would think Port Charles had higher moral concerns, like the fact that half its residents are serial killers, mobsters, or reanimated corpses. But no. Here, sex work is the great moral crime. It's quaint, really, this selective puritanism in a town where murder is practically foreplay. Jacinda's detractors call her manipulative, her defenders call her modern. The truth is, she's the only one behaving like an adult. She doesn't cower when Drew snarls or when Michael moralizes. She even manages to look him in the eye when he starts performing his patented Quartermain martyr routine. Yet, one can already sense the writer's impatience. Characters like her are tolerated, not nurtured. Expect her eventual downfall to be engineered through a misunderstanding, a secret text, or an incriminating photograph, standard issue for women who dare to be interesting. While Jacinda and Michael dominate the romantic confusion, the supporting cast continues to orbit in narrative limbo. Gio and Emma, two younger characters, are offered as a contrast. Innocent chemistry, unspoiled by cynicism. They have what the older characters lost: spontaneity, sincerity, and a touch of humor. They remind the audience what GH used to do so well: make love stories feel alive instead of preordained. It's almost touching to watch them flirt without needing a murder, a secret twin, or a paternity twist to justify their existence. But the show's fixation on recycling nostalgia drags even the fresh faces into déjà vu. Jacinda and Michael are apparently being groomed as the new Alan and Monica. That's not character development, it's cosplay. The resemblance may be visual, but the emotional depth isn't even in the same zip code. Alan and Monica were tragic, passionate, and unrepentantly flawed. Michael and Jacinda are brand ambassadors for moral confusion. They look good together, yes, but so do mannequins. Chemistry alone cannot compensate for writing that seems allergic to subtext. And then there's the court of public opinion, those loyal fans who, like a Greek chorus, debate each plot twist as though testifying before Olympus. They're torn, half rooting for Jacinda's redemption, half waiting for her to betray Michael in grand fashion. There's even speculation that she secretly works for Sidwell, which would be a merciful twist, injecting at least 1 ounce of suspense into this soap of slow-burn sermons. The irony is that Michael himself is the least interesting part of his own story. He's become the beige wallpaper of Port Charles, always present, rarely compelling. His romance with Jacinda could have been a commentary on hypocrisy and class, but instead it's a tepid morality play. His concern for her reputation feels less like love and more like brand management. And heaven forbid she have a past he can't redeem. For a man who grew up surrounded by mobsters, murderers, and adulterers, Michael remains shockingly fragile about appearances. Meanwhile, Drew and Willow continue their campaign for least interesting couple in soap history. Their endless carousel of manipulation, self-pity, and moral gaslighting has drained the patience of even the most devoted viewers. Drew's descent into villainy would be compelling if it weren't executed with all the subtlety of a bad improv sketch. Willow, perpetually teetering between martyrdom and melodrama, has turned self-victimization into performance art. She blames Michael for everything, including the weather. The once promising Drew-Willow arc has now overstayed its welcome by roughly 18 months. Their dynamic is the dramatic equivalent of an unattended car alarm, loud, repetitive, and impossible to ignore. Fans have begun begging for their exit, preferably in the same scene, perhaps via a plot twist involving a conveniently timed explosion. Nina and Portia, too, have joined the ranks of expendables. Characters so overused and underdeveloped, they've become narrative furniture. Nina's perpetual self-pity has reached near spiritual levels. She suffers beautifully, but she suffers constantly. Portia, once a promising addition, now drifts from subplot to subplot like a ghost who hasn't realized she's dead. When fans start fantasizing about a mass exodus of major characters just to breathe new life into the show, it's not enthusiasm, it's triage. Even the fan theories have grown more creative than the scripts. Could Nell Benson Jerome be alive? Back for revenge? Why not? GH has resurrected everyone except Elvis at this point. Her return would at least inject chaos with purpose. Imagine the collective panic if Nell, the town's most gloriously unhinged antagonist, emerged as Drew's shooter. The idea has poetic symmetry. After all, if anyone deserves to haunt Port Charles, it's the woman who made vengeance an art form. But while the audience dreams of meaningful twists, the show clings to its favorite hobby, self-cannibalization. The writers recycle their own cliches with the enthusiasm of magpies rearranging old foil. Even Ronnie's arc, brief, emotional, inevitably tragic, has been reduced to a waiting game for heartbreak. She'll discover the forged will, confront Martin, and deliver a teary farewell. The scene will be exquisite, the fallout promptly ignored. GH has perfected the art of emotional one-night stands. And then there's Drew himself, the show's most exhausting paradox. His transformation from hero to villain hasn't been gradual, it's been manic. One moment he's a victim, the next, he's threatening children. The writers mistake inconsistency for complexity, confusing a lack of logic with the illusion of depth. His interactions with Laura, Danny, and Rocco reveal more about the writer's confusion than the character's psyche. Is he evil? Broken? Possessed? Who knows? The only certainty is that any plot involving Drew will eventually collapse under the weight of its own nonsense. Fans have resorted to gallows humor to cope. "He'll never leave," they sigh, as if invoking a curse. They're probably right. General Hospital has a habit of keeping its most grating characters indefinitely, perhaps as penance for the good ones it prematurely kills off. An inability to let any story simply end. Every resolution births another half-baked twist. Every conclusion dangles a sequel nobody wants. Port Charles has become a hall of mirrors, each reflection slightly duller than the last. And yet, there's a perverse comfort in the chaos. Fans still tune in, still argue, still hope. They dissect every line, speculate every motive, and treat each implausible development as sacred text. Because beneath the absurdity lies the reason General Hospital endures. It's not realism people crave, it's catharsis. No other show so gleefully exposes human folly, wraps it in melodrama, and calls it love. Whether Michael and Jacinda rise or fall, whether Drew redeems or implodes, whether Willow finally stops weeping long enough to form a coherent thought, none of it truly matters. What matters is the spectacle, the glorious, maddening persistence of a world where logic is optional, emotion is weaponized. And the only rule is that nothing ever stays buried. At this point, General Hospital no longer resembles a soap opera so much as a living archaeological site, a dig through decades of half-buried plots, resurrected corpses, and characters who refuse to stay politely dead. Every week, a new specter emerges to remind us that Port Charles is a town where funerals are merely costume fittings for future comebacks. Consider the recent obituaries and resurrections. June Lockhart's passing, both the real actress and her fictional alter ego, Felicia's grandmother Mariah Ramirez, elicited genuine sentiment. For a brief moment, the show seemed to remember its roots, honoring its elders instead of using them as narrative props. The tributes were heartfelt, the nostalgia sincere. And then, almost immediately, the living residents resumed their favorite pastime, scheming, lying, and occasionally attempting murder before brunch. The mood swings are whiplash-inducing. One scene mourns a legend. The next, someone suggests resurrecting Nell Benson Jerome for one last grand act of sociopathy. And why not? She's the perfect ghost for this graveyard of continuity. Nell's hypothetical return, fans argue, would at least make Drew's shooting relevant again. The idea is macabre, brilliant, and entirely on brand for GH, which treats death like a long weekend rather than a permanent condition. Meanwhile, the collective patience of viewers is tested daily by Drew's metamorphosis from cardboard hero to comic book villain. His latest escapades, threatening teenagers, manipulating widows, and gaslighting the local moral compass, have earned him the dubious title of Port Charles' least likable man, which is no small feat in a town populated by mobsters and murderers. Fans fantasize about his exit the way other people fantasize about vacations. Alas, like mildew, he persists. Laura, ever the town's conscience, finally caught him threatening Danny and Rocco, and one can only hope she delivers the righteous slap the audience has been craving for months. Grandmother rank trumps all in Port Charles, and if anyone deserves to knock Drew out of his cheap, expensive shoes, it's her. The only thing more satisfying would be Ronnie herself joining in, since she's already seen through his smarmy veneer faster than half the police department. Ah, Ronnie, the show's latest tragic heroine, destined for heartbreak. Once she uncovers that Monica's will was forged, she'll learn that her grief has been weaponized by men with too much ambition and too little conscience. The mansion, the inheritance, the promise of belonging, it all turns to ash. Yet Ronnie's intelligence and quiet dignity keep her from descending into melodrama. She reads Drew like an open tabloid headline and will, no doubt, help dismantle his empire of deceit with Tracy at her side. Tracy Quartermain, of course, is the grande dame of retribution. Watching her team up with Ronnie promises a rare treat. Two women who refuse to play victims in a genre addicted to them. Their shared mission to expose Martin, Drew, or whichever schemer of the week is currently twirling the metaphorical mustache injects the show with an energy it's sorely lacked. When GH lets its women drive the story, it remembers what made it iconic in the first place. Yet for every moment of brilliance, there's a counterweight of absurdity. Tracy, a woman of obscene wealth, is inexplicably sleeping on Lulu's couch because apparently soap logic dictates that millionaires have nowhere to stay when the plot requires a little humiliation. Her decision to move boxes into a home that isn't hers without asking permission is pure Quartermain audacity, but it also reflects the writer's obsession with forced proximity. Nothing says drama like rich people playing musical sofas. Elsewhere, the show continues its long-standing love affair with implausible investigations. Who Shot Drew has become less a mystery and more a communal sigh. The suspects list has ranged from the deranged, Willow, to the deceased, Monica, to the self-inflicted, Drew himself. The only real suspense lies in whether the writers will remember who pulled the trigger by the time they air the reveal. Even the secondary characters aren't spared the soap's perpetual identity crisis. Chase, the eternally naive detective, remains a cautionary tale about trusting anyone named Willow. His blind devotion is less romantic than it is masochistic. One can almost admire his consistency. After all, stupidity this pure is practically a virtue. He's a man willing to torch his career to protect a woman whose loyalty evaporates faster than a plot hole in the sun. Meanwhile, Michael's son Danny continues to be the most emotionally literate male in Port Charles, which is a damning statement about the adults around him. His scenes radiate authenticity in a world addicted to pretense. He grieves, he fights, he protects. Everything his father pretends to do but rarely accomplishes. His chemistry with Rocco adds a refreshing touch of realism. Two boys navigating trauma without melodrama, offering the kind of quiet humanity the rest of the cast seems allergic to. Of course, the writers can't resist sprinkling in another holiday special to distract from the imploding storylines. A Halloween episode looms, promising costumes, chaos, and another cliffhanger that will likely involve a fake death, a secret twin, or both. Maxie's birthday, conveniently on the same day, will probably be forgotten. Again, perhaps she'll receive the traditional GH birthday gift, an existential crisis wrapped in bad lighting. The fans, ever loyal, cling to hope. They speculate about parties, confrontations, and long-awaited mentions of Sam's death. It's been a year after all, but emotional closure is a luxury Port Charles rarely affords. Drew, predictably, will find a way to turn even that remembrance into a soliloquy about himself. Narcissism is his only consistent character trait. Beneath all this narrative clutter lies a quieter tragedy, the show's habit of squandering potential. Characters with rich psychological layers are flattened into caricatures. Promising arcs are dropped mid-sentence. The WSB espionage thread, which once hinted at moral complexity, now exists solely to justify Carly's latest round of self-importance. GH has become allergic to subtlety. Every scene screams, every emotion is underlined twice. Even the humor, once delightfully campy, is now unintentional. When viewers debate whether Jerry Jacks, Cyrus, or C, whoever that is this week, is running the WSB, the line between satire and sincerity blurs. Fans construct elaborate theories not because the show inspires mystery, but because they're trying to make sense of nonsense. It's the narrative equivalent of assembling IKEA furniture with missing instructions. Still, for all its absurdities, General Hospital endures because it remains an unparalleled ecosystem of emotion. Every death, every betrayal, every impossible return feeds the collective addiction. It's a show that refuses to die because it mirrors the human refusal to stop hoping for resolution, even when we know better. Its greatest strength is its audience, passionate, critical, and endlessly forgiving. They analyze dialogue, trace family trees, and defend fictional strangers as if standing in a courtroom. They complain, threaten to quit, and yet tune in religiously. They are not merely fans, they are curators of chaos, keeping alive a piece of American television that should, by all logic, have collapsed decades ago. The paradox of GH is simple. It is both a disaster and a triumph. Its writing can be spectacularly bad, but its staying power is nothing short of miraculous. It is proof that a story doesn't have to make sense to matter, it just has to make people feel something. The actors, despite being shackled to implausible scripts, perform with a conviction that borders on heroic. Even the most nonsensical plot twist can be redeemed by a single well-delivered line. So yes, Port Charles is a madhouse. Its residents are liars, killers, lovers, and martyrs in equal measure. The timelines make no sense, the resurrections are endless, and the moral compass spins like a weather vane in a hurricane. But beneath the chaos lies a strange, enduring truth. General Hospital is the last great cathedral of serialized absurdity. It is where grief becomes performance, love becomes negotiation, and justice, if it ever arrives, comes wearing a Halloween mask. It is at once a satire of itself and a masterpiece of persistence, a place where memory is optional but passion is mandatory. As the next episode inevitably begins with another, previously on, the cycle will reset. Drew will scheme, Carly will crusade, Michael will moralize. Someone, somewhere, will come back from the dead. And the audience will sigh, laugh, and keep watching. Because no matter how far General Hospital falls from logic, it never falls from fascination. That is its secret genius. It makes absurdity addictive. Port Charles, for all its ghosts and contradictions, remains television's most chaotic love affair. A town that can't stop dying and the viewers who can't stop loving it. Ronnie has a spotless record, which only makes the setup against her look more deliberate. Every good mystery needs a red herring. And right now, General Hospital's Ronnie is looking more and more like one. Sure, she's been an easy target for Tracy's suspicions, a convenient outsider, with just enough mystery around her to make everyone's eyebrows shoot up. But look a little closer, and the cracks in that narrative start to show. Ronnie's insistence that she didn't forge Monica's will or get drunk out of her own volition doesn't sound like spin. It sounds like someone who's legitimately rattled. Tracy certainly hasn't held back in accusing Ronnie of forging Monica's will. But even Tracy isn't always lying. When she said she didn't drug Ronnie, it felt authentic, blunt and sharp, the way only Tracy can deliver a truth she knows will still sting. And let's not forget, she was aware Monica planned to leave the house to Michael, so her suspicions of Ronnie being a con artist are justified. But Ronnie also seems sincere in her denials. Lulu investigated her, and she's got no blemishes in her history. She's an honest-to-gosh, hard-working, bold woman who doesn't take Tracy's guff. So the more you put the pieces together, a forged will and spiked tea, the more it looks like this is someone else's handiwork. Whoever drugged Ronnie and tampered with the will had both access and motive. And if we're talking about someone who could pull that off quietly and strategically, we might have to look backward, not just around the current canvas. A name that naturally floats to the surface. Skye Chandler Quartermain, played by Robin Christopher. She's done her share of scheming when it comes to ELQ and the Quartermain estate. She's got the brains, the history, and the cool detachment to have set this in motion from the shadows. Another intriguing possibility? Lord Larry Ashton, Tracy's ex-husband and Ned's father. Originated by Hugo Napier, Ashton resurfaced in 2017 and was played by Oliver Muirhead. A forged will and a well-timed drugging are exactly the sort of elegant moves someone like him might make without ever setting foot in the room. And that's where the slow burn comes in. Right now, the story is setting Ronnie up to look guilty, but it's too obvious. The way this has been unfolding, the carefully timed drink, the quiet knowledge about the house, the forged document, feels less like a rookie scam and more like the opening move of someone who's played this game before. General Hospital spoilers reveal Dante Falconeri is highly suspicious of his own brother, Michael Corinthos. To be fair, it's not completely unwarranted. Michael has been acting rather flippant as of late. First, he sent his new baby girl, Daisy Corinthos Gilmore, to keep her safe, worried that Willow Tate had taken things a step too far with her desire for revenge against Michael. He continued to hammer on that Willow wasn't a safe person to have around their kids, Wiley and Amelia Corinthos. Then he suddenly flip-flopped and invited Willow to supervised visitation, where she conveniently got arrested in front of their children. Ouch! When Willow pointed the finger of blame at Michael, Dante wasn't all that surprised, and he didn't hesitate to call his little bro out on it. The question of whether Michael is guilty of framing Willow isn't hard to figure out, but he still seems rather ticked that Dante dared to ask. It felt familiar. It felt like a young, sunny Corinthos. Is Dante right? Has Michael changed? Dante didn't hold back when questioning Michael, even though it left his brother feeling like he needed to defend himself like a common criminal. Well, could he be one? Michael was on point when he said, had he shot Drew Kane, he would be dead. We kind of don't doubt that, but Dante can't take his word for it. You could read it all over his face that the detective in him knew some part of the story was missing, and he didn't sense that Willow was lying when she accused Michael of framing her. That being said, just because Willow believes that's what happened does not mean that's what happened. Dante couldn't help but take in every word Michael was dishing out the way he would with any other person he was interrogating. To be clear, that's exactly what he did. These two brothers had it out on the Quartermain patio while no one inside was any the wiser, signaling they're not ready to let anyone know they're somewhat at odds. Is Dante taking sides? It's not his style, but it almost seemed like he already had a chip on his shoulder when he went to confront Michael. We've seen this before, too. Pretty much every time he suspected his father had broken the law and didn't approve of it, Dante assured Michael he was there as his brother and not as a cop. But it sure didn't come across that way. Is Michael beginning to look a little bit too much like his dear old dad? Some fans are saying Michael may be inching a bit closer to embracing his Corinthos roots, and by that, I mean turning into a full-fledged mobster. All right, maybe we're not quite there yet, but isn't this how it starts? The golden boy may be falling from his throne, and with that comes compromise. If he thinks he was warranted in setting Willow up to protect his kids, I would agree that Michael is looking more like his mob boss dad than he ever has before. With Sonny stepping closer toward retirement, we keep wondering who's going to take the reins when he hangs up his hat. Is this the beginning of Michael going dark and taking up that mantle? It's starting to look like this apple didn't fall too far from the tree, so anything is possible. Stay tuned for more GH news and spoilers to see how this plays out. General Hospital spoilers suggest Jens Sidwell made some serious waves when he first moved to Port Charles, but we haven't seen much of him as of late. Is that all by design, though? When Britt Westbourne was trapped at the Five Poppies doing someone else's dirty lab work, it became clear to fans that Sidwell was somehow wrapped up with Pascal and Professor Henry Hank Dalton. His ties to key schemers have led fans to wonder if he's also had ties to Valentine Cassadine all this time. In some ways, it makes sense, but in others, we question if Valentine would be bold enough to get tangled up with any of Sonny Corinthos' enemies. Still, his obvious knowledge about Britt's situation has us thinking Valentine knows more than he's letting on. And that begs the question, who's keeping him in the loop? First, let's talk about the fact that Sidwell came to town after Lucky Spencer escaped with the help of a few friends, and he picked Valentine's former home on Spoon Island, of all places to settle into. Arriving in Port Charles, prepared to shake things up, that's exactly what he did, rattling the cage of everyone who feared him, and more who questioned his motives. But the dust has settled a bit around Sidwell as of late. Does that mean he's not the bad guy we suspected? Certainly not. Instead, it appears he's laying low, and we think we know why. It's a lot easier to keep your fingerprints off things if you stay in the background and let someone else do the dirty work. Someone like Britt? Or Valentine, perhaps. Valentine always seems to be right in the middle of things. An insider to the core, he always has the scoop on the underground. And that's just why Jack Brennan knew he could leverage a visit with Charlotte to get information out of him. Something tells us Valentine is going to end up on the outside again soon. If Jack could pull those strings for himself, he could make it happen for Valentine. Furthermore, he may get close enough to the center of this storm with Britt that he realizes he needs Valentine to figure it out. His downfall will be if he trusts him only to learn Valentine is an integral part of it all. The question on everyone's mind is, why did Valentine warn Charlotte Cassadine about Britt, urging her to warn Rocco Falconeri to steer clear of his surrogate mother? If he knows something we don't, like what Britt was up to in Croatia, then who told him? Sidwell's compound in South Africa was proof that he knows how to detain hostages. It would make sense that he may have been involved in locking Britt up and forcing her to work in that lab. Further, we know he was the boss man on the phone ordering Pascal around. Thus, it's not a leap to think Valentine and Sidwell are in cahoots. What do you think? Is Valentine on the right side of things this time? Or is he brazen enough to link arms with another one of Sonny's enemies amidst the resurrection of two of Cesar Faison's children? General Hospital spoilers are in for the week of October 27, 2025. Port Charles remembers Alan Quartermain. Jordan Ashford is grilled by Justine Turner. Plus, Nina Reeves makes another dirty move. Keep reading and let's talk about what is coming up in the ABC soap opera. Let's start off with Nina, who ends up making some kind of dirty move. Even though the mother loves her daughter and tried to protect her, it has all backfired. Now Willow Tate is in Pentonville and Nina doesn't know how to make things right again. Alexis Davis took Willow's case, but still thinks blaming Michael Corinthos is a long shot. Meanwhile, Nina makes another dirty move. I can't see Nina doing any more harm to her daughter. At the same time, Nina tends to act first and think later. Maybe Nina makes sure that someone else takes the fall for Drew Kane's shooting? Over with Trina Robinson, she has a heart-to-heart with her mother. In a preview clip for Monday, Trina walks into her mother's office but sees she's interrupting. Trina catches Portia with Isaiah Gannon. Although Portia and Isaiah are clothed, Trina can immediately sense there is something more going on than medical talk. General Hospital spoilers for the week of October 27th reveal that Justine will have some questions for Jordan. It's true that Jordan hasn't done anything wrong. At the same time, she is working for Jen Sidwell. So, that could come under scrutiny. Fans will also see Nathan West make some kind of promise. Does this have anything to do with Maxie Jones or James West? Plus, Lulu Spencer has more conflict with Dante Falconeri. Giovanni Gio Palmieri opens up to Emma Scorpio Drake. Ned Quartermain tries to screw Tracy Quartermain's head on straight. That might be easier said than done, though. Elsewhere, Veronica Ronnie Bard makes a jaw-dropping announcement. Britt Westbourne and Elizabeth Liz Baldwin face off. Cody Bell talks to a lawyer, plus Laura Collins is disappointed. Is this about Drew's offer to Ronnie? Also, Jason Morgan demands answers from Carly Spencer. Which storyline are you looking forward to seeing the most during the week of October 27th, 2025? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. Remember to keep watching the soap on ABC to find out what happens next. She and Monica are connected forever. After months of being lied to by her daughter, Carly has finally learned that Joss is working for the WSB on General Hospital. Carly is horrified. Carly is concerned. Carly is playing dress-up. But could this also lead to the ultimate realization for our Caroline Spencer? Carly was living in ignorant bliss, unaware that Joss was running around the world, playing spy, pretending to be married to Hunky Vaughn, and, oh yeah, killing people. People who have a job killing people put themselves at risk of being killed back. Carly doesn't understand how or why her little girl could have opted for such a dangerous lifestyle. Was it something Carly did? She can't think of anything. Carly always took such good care of Joss, surrounding her by love and family, and guards who'd protect her from stepfather Sonny's enemies. Where could Joss have gotten the idea that violence was an acceptable, not to mention kind of sexy, way of life? Carly is stymied. Stymied, we tell you. 30 years ago, Monica was the mother who couldn't understand why her beloved son, Jason, decided to discard his life of pre-med and Christmas sweaters in order to wear tight black t-shirts and kill people for the same Sonny who once protected Joss so well. At least, in Monica's case, she knew the culprit was a car accident, a brain injury, and a mobster who convinced her son that protecting him was a much nobler profession than healing the sick. She was as devastated then as Carly is now. Kudos to GH for connecting these two stories so beautifully. Back in the day, Carly totally supported Jason turning his back on his family. She even followed in his footsteps by keeping Michael away from the evil Quartermains and preferring that he be raised by the loving and gentle Sonny. General Hospital spoilers are in for the week of October 27, 2025. Fans can expect everyone to remember Alan Quartermain. Justine Turner questions Jordan Ashford. Plus, Nina Reeves plays dirty. Keep reading and let's talk about what is coming up in the ABC soap opera. Let's start off with Nina, who will make a dirty move. The blonde loves her daughter and didn't want to turn on her. However, she was pushed into taking Justine's deal. Willow Tate didn't want much to do with her mother before, and now it's going to get really bad. While Alexis Davis is defending Willow, Nina makes a dirty move. I can't see her doing anything more to Willow, but maybe she makes sure someone else takes the fall for Drew Kane's shooting? Over with Portia Robinson, she has a heart-to-heart with her daughter. In a preview clip for Monday's episode, Trina interrupts Portia and Isaiah Gannon. The two are just talking, but Trina gets the impression that she definitely interrupted someone. So, will Portia also tell her daughter that she's pregnant and has no clue who the father is? General Hospital spoilers for the week of October 27th reveal that Justin will question Jordan. While Jordan hasn't done anything wrong, she is working for Jen Sidwell. Jordan hasn't been able to find any proof of criminal activity, but Anna Devane was worried about her friend getting too comfortable with this new lifestyle. Fans will also see Nathan West make a promise. Lulu Spencer clashes with Dante Falconeri. Giovanni Gio Palmieri confides in Emma Scorpio Drake. Ned Quartermain tries to reason with Tracy. Quartermain makes a shocking announcement. Britt Westbourne faces off with Elizabeth Liz Baldwin. Cody Bell seeks legal advice. Plus, Laura Collins is dismayed. Does this have anything to do with Drew's proposition to Ronnie? For some reason, I think Ronnie just might pleasantly surprise everyone. Also, Jason Morgan confronts Carly Spencer. Does this have anything to do with Carly continually harassing Britt? Which storyline are you looking forward to seeing the most during the week of October 27th, 2025? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. Remember to keep watching the soap on ABC to find out what happens next.